And Woike, the Lakers beat reporter for the LA Times, kind enough to get up early with us. If I told you a week ago this is where we would be, you would have said what?
I would have said this is where we are, Dan, right? A week ago, we didn't know Dan Hurley was interested in this job. We didn't know the Lakers were interested in this job. We would have said, I would have told you that they are doing their due diligence in sort of a slow, methodical way internally, but externally, everybody thinks the job is going to be JJ Redick. That was where we were on last Wednesday, right? Then obviously, Adrian Wojnarowski reports about Dan Hurley on Thursday morning. I was able to quickly get that confirmed internally, and then kind of you're off to the races over this weekend where the number one choice emerges. And now, I mean, I think what we knew about the coaching search before, a week ago has been kind of shaken a little bit to its core. And as of right now, I don't really know where anything stands with them. Coming out of this, they put a lot of eggs into this basket and have nothing to show for it except some embarrassment today and yesterday.
The perception hit for the Lakers. How do you measure? How do you measure that?
Well, I think it's twofold. I think on one hand, right, like they can say and they will say that they did everything they could to get the best possible coach into their building, and you shoot a shot like that. That's what you do if you're a marquee franchise, right? Like you take those kinds of swings. I think though, and the analogy I keep coming back to over the last day or so, Dan, is like if you're gonna tell somebody that you love them, you want to hear it back, and you want to be pretty sure that you're going to hear it back, right? Like, and I think the Lakers were exposed in this way on this, right? You hear things like on Thursday that Dan Hurley was their choice all along, right? The front and center of their search, and they get him to Los Angeles, and there's going to be this offer, and all of that stuff, and you don't leave with him as your coach. What does that say about your process to date? What does that say about your process in terms of the other candidates you've spoken to? What does that say about the coach that you eventually do hire, Dan? Right? Like, I mean, now we know whoever they hire isn't the guy that they wanted most. And that's what I mean. I think they had to have thought, and I know people over there thought that they were going to get Dan early, that they thought the offer was good enough, that they thought the opportunity was good enough. There were factors I think they couldn't control. They don't happen to play in the Mohegan Sun on the Eastern Seaboard. Like I think there were geographic factors in this, right? Like this is very much an East Coast family. I think that they don't have the opportunity to compete for a third straight NCAA championship. They can't offer that, right? Like, so they can't offer the lure of doing something John Wooden did last. And then I think honestly, like there's just questions. And Dan Hurley knows what his life is like as UConn head coach. You talk to people around the league about what life is like as the Lakers head coach, and it's a very different story.
Is it a desirable job?
I think so. I mean, look, right? Like, one, they're all desirable because there's only so many of them. But I think, yeah, it's a desirable job. Look, you've got two superstars. You've got a great place to live. There's nothing quite like being a famous Laker in Los Angeles. The doors that opens. I've had conversations, over the years with a guy like DeAndre Jordan who experienced it for a couple of months as a Laker, but years as a Clipper, and how different it was, right? Like it's just a different thing when you're a famous Laker. The stars come to see you, right, and not the other way around. But there are challenges. It's a challenging time in the organization's history right now. Like there is I don't want to say a reckoning. That seems a little dramatic, but there are crossroads that are coming, right? Like if you re-sign LeBron James, and I expect them to, he's only getting older, and the pressure to win is only going up every day that he's in the league, right, and performing at a high level. He's maybe the most win now player in NBA history by being a 40-year-old All NBA player. There's no time to waste, right? And then, but you also know the future's coming too, so you are kind of stuck in that. I don't want to say a two timeline situation, but you do have two jobs. You have to plan for tomorrow while maximizing today. And ask Steve Kerr how hard that was, with Golden State when they've tried to do that with James Wiseman and Jonathan Kuminga while still maximizing Steph Curry and Klay Thompson, Draymond Green. It's a really hard thing to do in the NBA, and you're doing it at a place where the expectations are as high as any.
Is there any talk of the Lakers not re-signing LeBron?
I haven't heard a credible other option, to be honest. They want him. They want to do it. They want to do right by him. That is what they do organizationally. They take care of their stars, and they want him to end his career with the Lakers. And I haven't heard a situation. I mean, the closest, right? And I don't believe he's going to go to the Philadelphia 76ers, but would be potentially a situation where he could still get max money and compete for a title instantly. Maybe a situation like that, and I would expect the Sixers and Daryl Morey to chase. But I just don't think. I think he's happy in Los Angeles. I really believe that. But he wants to be competitive here, and he wants to see the organization operating in a good way. And I think, he tweeted something yesterday in response to somebody saying, people don't think that LeBron's about winning, and he's like, they'll never learn. Yeah, he's about winning. He is about winning. But I think at this stage in his career, he's about things like family. He's about things like, comfortability as well. And it's a complicated decision in that way for him. It's not as simple as go take a minimum to go play, for the Warriors or something like that.
He's Dan Woike. He's the Lakers beat reporter for the LA Times. When Danny Hurley came back and there was no agreement in principle, there was not, and I said he's not going to take the job. I felt once he got back home,
Yeah.
like this is almost that flirtation, and I don't know if it was a leverage play or not. That hey, I'm going to get a new deal at UConn. Wait, I don't have that deal yet. What are we waiting for? Let's let the Lakers know I'm interested, or maybe they're interested. Maybe I'm a little more interested. Now I'm talking. Now I got to go out there. I'm hearing this offer. Now I'm going back. Now I'm going. Wait a minute. Do I really want to do this? This is where my home is. That was the feeling that I got in real time with all of this. I just don't know. Did the Lakers give him a deal? I guess they gave him a deal that he could turn down. But if it's a massive deal, and Woj said that, this is going to be this isn't a massive deal. He should be paid more than Monty Williams. I mean, if you want him, get him. And I don't know if it's all about money with Hurley. Probably not. But if you're the Lakers, you can't afford to lose him.
Yeah, Dan. I think the offer was both like simultaneously fair, and not enough, right? It can be both, right? And I think if there was a financial miscalculation, it was sort of, that you have to pay a tax on sentiment, right? You're paying, part of what you're paying Dan Hurley for is to leave a life behind that is really the only life he's ever known.
Yeah.
And I think, look, and I tweeted this in my initial reaction to the offer was, it's a good offer. That's a lot of money for a college coach when the track record of college coaches to have success in the NBA is very short, right? The last coach to win a title, there's only been one who's ever won a title in both, and it's Larry Brown. I think there's only been 4 ever, Dan, that have coached in the finals and the Final Four. If you would say like you're hiring Billy Donovan today, that's like an overwhelming success when this is going to sound disrespectful and I don't mean it to be, when you could also be hiring John Beilein. You could also be hiring John Calipari or Rick Pitino, right? In terms of hiring hot college names, and that transition is just brutal. So I think the offer was reasonable, right? Like Ty Lue has earned the right to make more money than Dan Hurley. Certainly Steve Kerr, Greg Popovich, Eric Spoelstra. The Monty Williams thing is what it is, right? Like that is the outlier on this one. And I think, look, if you're an NBA owner, you're looking at Detroit's appetite for paying Monty Williams moving forwards too. I just think I think you're right. I think like this was not the type of like my socks are blown away offer. And this was maybe a situation for some sock blowing. Like they probably needed to Godfather him in that way, right? And that wasn't this. This was reasonable. I had heard some outrageous numbers in the build up to this. 8 years, 120 million, like the stuff you hear, and you have no idea where it comes from. And that's the other thing too about this, Dan, was like this was so insulated. This really, truly, and I have to like it came out of nowhere. I'd like to think I've been pretty plugged in on the search to date. I hadn't heard this name. I hadn't heard this offer. And when it came along, it really did shape kind of what the Lakers process was, the core for me. And now you just kind of wonder, to go back to where we start, do you just start where you left off? Or do you have to kind of come up with some other, home run swing, and find somebody else that satisfies some of the excitement that Dan Hurley's name kind of caused out here in Los Angeles?
Oh, boy.
Yep, that's it. I mean, I don't know how to spell that, Dan. I tried to get it into all my stories. That exact exasperated side. It's just really hard. I don't know how many vowels, how many H's are in there. But I mean, it's a Lakers coaching search. I mean, here's the other thing. It's not entirely the same as where they were in 2019, but they were at the 3-yard line with Ty Lue, and didn't get that deal done. And everybody thought their top two candidates at that time were Tyronn Lue and Monty Williams. Tyronn Lue took an assistant job with the Clippers. Monty Williams went to Phoenix, and the Lakers, I guess, stumbled into their third choice in Frank Vogel, and then they won a title. Now, Frank Vogel was out in 3 years. This is where they're at, and it just feels like familiar road for them.
Is Bronny coming to the Lakers? Is that a foregone conclusion?
I don't think they're going to take him 17. If he's there at 55, if he is there earlier in the second round, I've spoken to people in the Lakers scouting department, and they have tried. It's impossible, but they've tried to separate the prospect from the gene pool. But look, I mean, there are things to really like about Bronny James in the second round. He's projectable. He was McDonald's All-American. He's a terrific athlete. He plays the right way. If you're picking after 20, Dan, it's a lottery pick, generally speaking anyways. I'm sorry, like a scratcher, not an actual lottery pick in this case, but it's like a scratch-off ticket. And if you can curry a little favor too, I think, sure. So they're interested. I think there's no doubt that they're interested in Bronny James. And if they're going to take him, my hunch would be sometime in the second round. It wouldn't be at 17.
If you could interview anybody today, who would it be?
For the Lakers job or just anybody in the world?
The Lakers job.
I mean, like, I think there were feelers put out to a lot of people, right? Like Jay Wright is a name that I've thought about a lot since the Lakers had their coaching jobs. But like Jay Wright seemingly has one of the top 5 lives in America right now. He seems so happy, and I just don't think he's interested in.
Wait, of all the people that you could interview, not the Lakers interviewing.
Who would I want to? I'd want to talk to LeBron James today, and I would want to know today how he feels. Honestly, like if I could do the sodium pentothal, like tell me exactly how you feel this moment. Like no subtweets, anything like that. That to me, I want to know that, and I would also love to know what JJ Redick is thinking today too. Those are the two people that I'm most interested in, kind of where their headspaces are in the aftermath of the Dan Hurley thing.
I'm still shocked ESPN hasn't had JJ Redick on through all of this. You got the story in-house. He works for you. Did you talk to them? When's the last time you talked to them? How do you feel about Dan Hurley being offered the job? Are you still interested? I mean, you're my employee. I have to have you come in. I have to talk to you about this. It's like,
It is. It's a bizarre media story too, Dan. Like there's elements of that at play here. I think with JJ, right, the thing we kept hearing was that his focus was on the finals, that calling the finals were a very big deal to JJ. And if you look at kind of the way that seat has transitioned for ESPN, going from Jeff Van Gundy, who reportedly they didn't love hearing about his flirtations with coaching, and kind of every offseason it was the same. He would be on interview lists and stuff like that. Well, then they replace him with Doc Rivers, and that goes till about January until he goes and starts coaching again. And then now the third person that's in that chair in less than a year is all of a sudden is a favorite for a coaching job. I think I understand why they wouldn't want to highlight that to a certain degree, but you're right. From a news standpoint, it's like they can tell him like, hey, like you've been on First Take. Like, let's sit down. Like let's have this conversation. Go on NBA Today. Talk to these people. Talk to Adrian Wojnarowski. He's sitting right here at the table. Like, you know, he's right next to you. But I just think there's just like the cross pollinations and all of this stuff. There's been so much sensitivity to it. I think that's also sort of part of the reason why we are here, you know, a couple weeks before the draft, and the Lakers still don't have a coach.
You got a great job. You know,
I do.
You do.
I do. I'm very fortunate.
Yeah.
I'm very fortunate.
It's not like you go, man, I got to drum up a story here. It's like, which one do I want to choose from? It's like top shelf liquor. What do I want? I mean, you're not drinking, you know, out of a keg.
Well, I'll tell you this, Dan. Top shelf liquor also helps with this shot. And also, it has its advantages.
Thank you for getting up. Thank you, Dan.
My pleasure.
That's Dan Woike. He covers the Lakers for the LA Times. Take a break. Play of the day. Your phone call's up next.